Which Should Have Seen as a Marine, Part 6A, by Matthew Hull 0700. So, obviously I'm not 0359, and hopefully soon after I posted this he'll verify. But after reading his last update, Which Should I Have Seen as a Marine Part 6, I felt called to explain everything that happened with the doll and why it pissed me off people weren't taking the story as seriously as the others. Because this damn doll made our lives hell for over a month. I don't have the great writing skill set of my friend, but I give this my best shot. First, a little background on me. I've been with 035 since we both hit the fleet, and I'm one of the highly intelligent, rock-eating, simple-to-maintain machine gunners. Now, I'm not the one who found the doll, but someone in my team did. Now, myself and a small group of us made a pact that once we were back in the States, we'd let this die and not bring up names or pictures. I'm gonna break a few of those promises now. The man that found the doll, we'll call him Ronnie because I'm not dumb enough to use real names, he picks up this doll near the end of our break off patrol, in the middle of the bush. As aforementioned, we are super highly intelligent, and even a cool rock can keep us detached for hours, so this doll was definitely an upgrade. He passed her around the squad, and we each take turns looking at the black eyes and the weird-looking grin on its face. Somebody said it was like a flower in the middle of the bush, so somehow the name Daisy got thrown around. It was blatantly obvious that this thing was creepy, and that only meant one thing to the machine gunners. Fucking with one of the scared mortarmen. We'll call him Taxi, which is one of the favorite pastimes of the platoons. He was literally freaking out by the simplest things. I once saw him jump up and down and run 10 feet away because he saw a moth. So, needless to say, he was struggling in Darwin as it was. After we got our fill of making him miserable, we all fell asleep until it was time to finish the patrol later that afternoon. Now, I'm not going to bore you with the same details of the hike and how miserable we all were when we were wandering around for hours, because everyone knows you can't spell lost without LT. One thing I will say that 035 left out was the fog. Came out of nowhere. It made it hard to see, and to breathe. It was almost as if that Stephen King's book, The Mist, had come to life. The creepiest part is that almost immediately after this, the lieutenant found Daisy in his pack, and I rushed to grab it. If you want to get rid of it right, you have to do it yourself. When the fire broke out, I wasn't going to take any more chances. I saw the flames creeping up and set the doll on a log that had already caught fire. This doll needed to die. When we stepped on the C-53, we all felt a slight breath of relief. We were done with the field and had a couple of weeks back in the rear before we went back out. Also, we had a bunch of Great Northern and VB waiting for us in our rooms. No one was making it through the night without being plastered. And to commemorate the weird experience, we of course watched the movie Annabelle before going to our rooms and passing out. To give a rundown of how our rooms were set up, we had a building with about 7 rooms in it, and each of us somehow managed to get our own rooms. We had my machine gun squad of 5 guys, Ronnie included, Taxi, and 035 none. We were an odd bunch, but we made it work. Best of all, our building was at least 2 kilometers away from the rest of our company. We were literally alone. And afraid. The next morning, we all woke up to the sound of Taxi screaming his head off. One by one, we went into his room, and we all froze up. Sitting on his nightstand, next to his bed, was Daisy. Except she wasn't burned at all. In fact, she had a little yellow dress on, and her mouth wasn't in a grin anymore. It was a frown, almost as if she was scolding us. Taxi kept asking us about the doll in his room, and none of us admitted to it. The rational part of me wanted to believe that one of the guys in my squad was a sick and sadistic fuck and messing with him on a whole new level. But no one fessed up. We didn't have time to think about it too much, though, before we got dressed and went into formation. On the way out, Ronnie took the doll and threw it on the ground and stomped on it. One of the arms broke off, and he kicked it into a storm drain and left the doll in the road. After formation, we walked back to our rooms and grabbed our gear. We were going to work on clearing houses, and we assumed that we were going to be using some of the barrack buildings, but We had to meet up in an hour with the rifle platoons. While we were walking back, we noticed that Daisy wasn't there. We all started validating it somehow. Things like, I bet one of the Aussies came by and picked it up. Or a bird or an officer came by and took it out of the road. We are on the road that leads to the gym. And as we walked back to our rooms, our nightmares came to fruition. I heard Ronnie yell for me. I walked in, assuming that he had a question on the gear to grab, but no. Daisy was sitting on his bed. And not only had a pissed-off look on her face, both arms and a red dress, she was pointing right out the sliding glass door. I composed myself just long enough to see what she was pointing at. It looked like a town on the other side of the knee-high wooden fence. We were told by the Aussies that it was just an old barracks that weren't being used anymore, at least when we got to the base a couple months prior. We left Daisy where she was, and we ran back up to meet with our rifle brethren. Then we began to walk, right for the old town behind our barracks room. Emotions raged through all of us, a mixture of anger and fear. Why had this doll started tormenting us, and why will it not, die? As we got closer to the town, I started observing it more and more. It looked like it had been deserted, not moved out of. Cars were broken down in the streets, and the trees' limbs were blocking roads and sidewalks. What was even weirder were the buildings. They were all on stilts, single-story houses that were 10 feet up in the air, and underneath was a concrete slab. We went throughout the day, and nothing weird happened except we passed a bunch of no trespassing asbestos area signs. Presumably the reason the Aussies moved out. But when the sun started to set, we were getting a couple of night raids in. I was the lucky son of a bitch who had to sit in an abandoned, asbestos-ridden, and creepy house pretending to be the enemy, while the platoon patrolled from about a kilometer away to get to the house. A sergeant had already told me to just lay down in the room at the end of the hall and wait for them to breach. So, to give the general layout of the house, there was one door in and one door out. Walk in the door and look to the left, there's a giant living room. To your 2 o'clock is a small kitchen with an island countertop. Nowhere to hide is what I'm trying to say. Look to your immediate right and there's a long hallway. There are 2 doors on the left, one being a bedroom and the other being a bathroom. 2 doors on the right, one being a bedroom and one being a coat closet. And at the end of the hall is a door with a full-size mirror on the wall perfectly positioned to scare the piss out of anyone. Especially at night when you're looking for people and you have your rifle flashlight on and it's like someone with the same rifle as you is about to shoot you at the end of the hall. Naturally, I chose the room at the end of the hall for this factor. So I set myself up inside the closet at the end of the hall, leaving just enough room to see anybody coming into the room but not enough to be obvious that I'm hiding. Gotta think like the enemy, you know? Tough, realistic training. I wait about 10 to 15 minutes, and I must have dozed off because the next thing I know is hearing the door bust open to the house. A rush of people yelling, "U.S. Marines!" and "Left, right, clear!" They eventually make it to my room and kick in the door. 3 flow in, and look confused. Instead of the normal "room clear" or press from them shooting me through the opening I let my rifle stick out of. Gotta make it a little easier. My goal was just to make them find me, not hide indefinitely or be super obvious. I hear, "What the fuck?" and see one of them drop their rifles. I jump out the closet and kill them, but then I see what their lights were shining on. I threw up. Sitting against the wall was Daisy, finger pointing right at the closet. That wasn't the worst part, though. Above the doll were the words, "He's in there," written in blood. I fell down and slumped against the wall. A Marine immediate gets on one knee next to me and screams, "Kermit up!" I looked down and noticed my desert blouse was soaked in blood. The bitch of a doll used my blood without me knowing. Sorry if this post is short and not as detailed, but I can't help thinking that telling the whole story right now is a bad idea. Not yet.